Hello there everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games and today we are talking more about the Game Awards and whether or not Nintendo will have anything of note to say there. There's been a lot of speculation recently on whether or not the Switch 2 will be announced in December, specifically maybe even at Jeff Keighley's Game Awards. I think that's frankly nonsense. I don't think there's any hope of Switch 2 being announced this year. I think a lot of us need to take a step back and accept the fact that we will probably not see that console for a few more months still. However, as it is getting closer to December, I wanted to talk about the Game Awards and the likelihood of Nintendo having something to show there. Now, earlier this week, I made a video on a rumor about Metroid Prime 2 and 3 coming to Switch in early 2025, and because of that, I feel like the likelihood, assuming that rumor is to be believed, I feel like the likelihood of a Nintendo announcement this year at the Game Awards has really gone up quite a bit, but let's talk about it. Alrighty, people, welcome back to the channel. Apologies for the lack of daily uploads over here. I've been really focusing on It's Amiibo the past couple of weeks, so if you're missing the daily Botox game uploads, go check out my other channel. That'll be linked down below. But today I want to talk about the Game Awards because every year we do the same song and dance of whether or not Nintendo will be there, and the reality is they usually are. I always get a lot of comments being like, oh, Nintendo's not going to support the Game Awards. They can do their own shows. They don't have any reason to be at the Game Awards. But reality is very different from that. The reality is that Nintendo usually does have something at the Game Awards. Even if it's a third-party game they're publishing, it seems like Nintendo usually likes to throw Jeff Keighley a bone and have something. Even if it's something small, they usually have some sort of Nintendo-related announcement there. Now, there have been a couple years where there were nothing. In fact, out of my little bit of research I did here, it looks like out of the past decade and some change, only 3 Game Awards have not had a major Nintendo announcement or a Nintendo announcement, period. So I kind of wanted to go through these, and maybe going through these, we can get an idea of what kind of announcement they might allow to happen at the Game Awards. You know, a lot of people think maybe Pokemon Legends EA could be there, Metroid Prime 4, of course, being the most prominent theory, I suppose. But let's go back through here and kind of have a history lesson in Nintendo announcements at the Game Awards and why, based on this, I think it is likely we will have something this year. So back in 2013, before it was even called the Game Awards, when it was still the Spike Video Game Awards, I believe, they had a Cranky Kong in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. If you remember, this was a big deal because Nintendo was teasing it like, hey, stay tuned, Nintendo fans, it's going to be a big announcement at the Game Awards, or the Video Game Awards this year. And then it ended up just being Cranky Kong and Donkey Kong, which is really funny because who cares? Of course, Donkey Kong was coming out in February at that point, but either way, point is, Nintendo did have an announcement for the Video Game Awards that year. In 2014, I would say this is one of the more substantial years. We had the Breath of the Wild kind of off-screen demo from Miyamoto and Eiji Aonuma. That was our first time seeing gameplay of Breath of the Wild, which was a huge deal. Of course, at that time, it was just a Zelda Wii U. In 2015, as far as I can tell, there was nothing Nintendo there at all. In 2016, they had another Breath of the Wild demo with some of the Nintendo Treehouse guys. Of course, at that point, Breath of the Wild is only a few months away, but still, they showed some more Breath of the Wild gameplay. In 2017, we had the Champions Ballad DLC for Breath of the Wild shadow dropped at that event, but also, actually, this is probably the biggest Game Awards for Nintendo. We had the Breath of the Wild Champions Ballad DLC, but also Bayonetta 1 and 2 were announced for a February release in 2018, and Bayonetta 3 was confirmed to be in development. Now, this is where I think a trend starts with Nintendo and Game Awards, where they seem to like to do third-party games they're publishing at this event. So games from Platinum, games from Square Enix, that kind of thing. And I think maybe we could see something like that this year as well, but we'll get to that. In 2018, we had the Joker reveal for Smash, as well as Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 that Nintendo published in 2019. In 2019, we had Bravely Default 2, as well as No More Heroes 3. No More Heroes 3, not published by Nintendo, but I did want to include it because it was so heavily aligned with Nintendo. It was a Nintendo exclusive at the start, so I'm not sure if Nintendo played any part in that, but I did want to include that. But either way, they had Bravely Default 2 there, which was Nintendo published and is a Switch exclusive. 2020 had Sephiroth and Smash Bros, so that's 2 Smash Bros announcements, almost back-to-back. So Smash Bros not being a thing anymore definitely hurts the chances, I guess, of there being news at the Game Awards. But that was definitely a smart thing for them to do, having those character reveals, especially for Joker and Sephiroth, characters that you don't really associate with Nintendo, especially not at that point in time. Having those at the Game Awards when all eyes are on whatever is being shown, that was a really smart move there. 2021, as far as I'm aware, had nothing from Nintendo. 2022, however, had Bayonetta Origins, so another Platinum Games game, as well as the Fire Emblem Engage DLC was shown there, so that was a first-party Nintendo thing. And then 2023 had nothing. I was making videos at the same time last year being like, yeah, 2023, there will probably be something, because as you can see with the history here, they almost always have something. There's a couple years where they had absolutely nothing, but there is usually something, even if that something is small, even if that something is a third-party game they're publishing like Bayonetta Origins or Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, Nintendo likes to give Jeff Keighley something. Now, whether or not they will have an announcement in 2024, that remains to be seen. Obviously, the show is, I think, in 2 weeks now, a little less than 2 weeks from when I'm recording this and posting it, but as of right now, if I were to make a bet, if you're asking me on the spot, Bo, do you think there will be a Nintendo announcement at the Game Awards? I would say yes, and here's why. So like I said at the top, there was a new rumor earlier this week from Samus Hunter that basically is saying that Metroid Prime 2 and 3 could see a release in early 2025, maybe even in February. She said here, I'm looking forward to replaying the entire trilogy on the Switch before that. About to remastered, I can confirm what Grubb had mentioned. It was planned as a standalone release, but got moved a couple of times now, and is now planned for early next year, likely between Donkey Kong Country Returns and Xenoblade X. So those games come out in January and March, respectively. You have to assume if there's going to be another Nintendo game in the mix there, it would probably come out in February. That's also the time that Metroid Prime Remastered released back in 2023. It was shadow dropped in the February Direct. But she also said here, it is very peculiar how Nintendo has handled the 3 games with releases more than a year after their completion. In fact, they can release them whenever they want. Personally, I wouldn't rule out an announcement of them at the Game Awards as timing would fit, but I have no information on that. So Samus Hunter isn't saying like, hey, these are going to be announced this year. They're just saying they've heard they're releasing in between Donkey Kong and Xenoblade X, which would lead us to believe February. So there's 2 routes here for these 2 games. They could either announce them at the Game Awards, which is what I think is likelier, or they can shadow drop them again in a February Nintendo Direct. Now, we're hearing from the other insider over on Fabiboards Brazil that apparently there will be some sort of Nintendo Direct showcase for Switch 1 games only in February. So it is definitely possible that we get a February Direct and Nintendo shadow drops Prime 2 and 3 on the eShop. Maybe they get a physical release a few weeks later, like what they did with Prime 1. However, I think it just makes so much more sense for Nintendo to show these games at the Game Awards, specifically because of Metroid Prime 4. Now, we don't know when Prime 4 is releasing. We know it's just coming out in 2025. I think it's earlier in the year, especially if the Switch 2 is a late 2025 release. I think at that point, you see Prime 4 as like a, I don't know, May game or something on Switch 1 exclusively. But if that's the case, right, if we're getting Prime 4 in the first half of 2025, let's say, you want to start showing it sooner than later. I mean, they could wait until February, but Metroid Prime 4 is such a Western-focused game. I mean, we've talked about this for years now, Metroid Prime 4 being at the Game Awards, and the thing is, we keep saying it because it just makes sense. The Game Awards is a huge platform. I think last year there was something like 250 million people watching it live. Of course, a lot of those are probably Genshin Impact fans getting their free drops or whatever, but a lot of people have their eyes on the Game Awards. So it makes sense for Nintendo to have something there, and if they want to replicate what they did in 2018 and have Metroid Prime 4 there alongside the announcement of Prime 2 and 3, that is such a win, right? Like, that's such a win, because you get some marketing for Prime 2 and 3, a bit of a different strategy, what you had with Prime 1, right? Because they shadow dropped that game. I think because they shadow dropped it and had little marketing for it, it probably hurt the sales of it quite a bit, quite frankly. I think we know it sold at 1.5 million, which is fine for what it is, but I think it could have done better if it had a proper kind of hype cycle. So this way you get Prime 2 and 3 out there, you have them kind of known, get a little bit more marketing there, you have a trailer for Prime 4, maybe not a release date, but another like kind of vague 2025 thing. That'd be very exciting. People have been waiting to see more of that game, maybe even show some more actual gameplay, like just real-time, like 10-minute demo or something. That kind of thing would be awesome. And then when we get to that February Direct, they can still show Prime 2 and 3 again, and they can especially still show Prime 4. Maybe that February Direct is where we get a release date for Prime 4 if it is in the first half of the year, if it's, in the summer or something like that. They can double up, show it at the Game Awards and show it at the February Direct. I think would be a very wise choice, especially if Prime 4 is their biggest release of 2025 or one of their biggest releases, maybe next to 3D Mario and Switch 2. Showing Prime 4 as much as possible just makes the most sense, especially just exposing the IP and the game to as many people as possible. The people that watch Nintendo Directs, we're already buying Metroid Prime 4. There's no doubting that. We're all Nintendo fans, and we're probably going to be buying Metroid Prime 4. You want to show Metroid Prime 4 to the audience that don't really even know about Metroid. And I know that sounds silly. You're watching a Nintendo video, it's like, well, how do people not know about Metroid? It's the truth. A lot of people don't even have Metroid Prime 4 on their radar for 2025. So showing it there, especially when you consider the fact that Metroid Prime 4 is nominated for most anticipated game at the Game Awards this year, it's just such an easy win. The dominoes are lined up perfectly for Nintendo to have a Metroid announcement there. So that is what I believe. I do think we will at the very least see Prime 4 at the Game Awards. Prime 2 and 3, I'm taking the Samus Hunter stuff with a grain of salt. I do believe those games are coming, but I don't know. I could maybe still see them doing weird stuff and like shadow dropping those at a direct or something. But Prime 4, something Metroid, basically. Point is, something Metroid. I really think they should show at the Game Awards. Ideally Prime 4, ideally all 3 games. But if I had to choose one, I would say Prime 4, and then, you know, you tease Prime 2 and 3 at the direct or whatever in a few months after that. But I do think that is my prediction. My prediction is Prime 4 will be shown at the Game Awards this year. But I do want to talk about some other possibilities, specifically a Bravely Default thing. So earlier this year, this wasn't even a rumor, I'm on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors of Reddit, but earlier this year, Tomoyo Asado, the producer of the Bravely series, said there would be developments in the Bravely series this year, so please stay tuned. That was 9 months ago. There have been no developments in the Bravely series so far this year. Now, Square Enix has gone under a lot of restructuring this year, and they've canceled a lot of projects. We heard from Midori that Triangle Strategy 2 was one of those games that was unfortunately canceled, so maybe they're not ready to show it anymore because of what's been going on internally over there, but I feel like that still feels weird to me. I feel like we're still waiting for some sort of Bravely announcement in 2024. Maybe it got pushed to early 2025, that kind of thing. Maybe it is a Switch 2 thing, right? Maybe when Asano said that, he was expecting it to be in a Switch 2 reveal event, right? That is definitely possible. However, I feel like given the types of games they make, even if it is a Switch 2 thing, you'd probably still want to put Bravely Default 3 or Bravely Third, whatever, on the Switch 1, even if it is a Switch 2 game. But more than that, I feel like we're due for a double pack of the 3DS games on Switch. I feel like that makes the most sense at this point in time to get people more caught up on that series than you do Bravely Third or whatever a couple years into the Switch 2's life cycle. That, I think, would be ideal. And if it's just a combo pack of the first 2 games, I think that also could totally be at the Game Awards. That's a perfect fit. We saw Bravely Default 2 announced there back in 2020, or in 2019, I should say. So between Metroid Prime 4 and maybe like a Bravely Default and Bravely Second kind of double pack, I feel like between those 2 things, we should almost certainly be seeing something from the Game Awards from Nintendo this year. There's also some other possibilities that I think are less likely. You know, we could see something along the lines of a Marvel Ultimate Alliance collaboration, just kind of out of left field thing. We could see some sort of other Square Enix collaboration. I mean, Live Alive is something that's we kind of have a good idea is getting a sequel, Live Alive 2. That I'm not sure Nintendo would publish, though, or if it would be exclusive, because Live Alive did end up releasing on PlayStation earlier this year, so I'm not sure. That's the issue with Square Enix right now. They're really trying to go more multi-platform. So with Live Alive, with Triangle Strategy, with all these other things, I feel like maybe those would just be multi-platform, and maybe that's why this Bravely Default announcement got delayed. Maybe they're trying to get Bravely Third or whatever on all platforms for when they release it. Maybe there's some licensing issues with Nintendo publishing it here in the West. I'm not too sure, but maybe that's why that announcement got delayed, and therefore it wouldn't be a Nintendo announcement if they're not going to publish it anymore. But I still feel like we're due for that Bravely announcement. And then, yeah, like I said, maybe some other left field thing, maybe another Square Enix thing entirely. I talked about this last year, but almost every year of the Switch, Nintendo has published a game from Square Enix. Maybe that relationship won't continue in that way anymore because they are pursuing more multi-platform efforts, but I mean, you look back to Octopath in 2018, Bravely Default 2 in 2021, you had Triangle Strategy, you had Live Alive, even like Super Mario RPG and The World Ends With You Final Remix. Almost every year of the Switch had something from Square Enix published by Nintendo in America, and that seems to have dried up, so I'm not sure if those deals are done or what, but I could totally see something on that front. And then lastly, I do think, while it probably wouldn't be here, because I don't think this would necessarily be a Switch 1 game, something from Platinum is cooking, right? Bayonetta 2 and Bayonetta Origins were the last games they released, and I'm pretty sure they said Bayonetta Origins was done before Bayonetta 3 release, and that was in 2022. So they're cooking something. My guess is Astral Chain 2, and I think that would be a Switch 2 game, right? I don't think Astral Chain 2 is going to come to the current Nintendo Switch at this point in time. So it's probably too early to see something from Platinum, but I do think they're almost certainly working on something with Nintendo. Maybe it's a Nier 3 or whatever with Square Enix, but I do think something from Platinum is on the horizon. I think we'll see whatever Platinum's working on with Nintendo in 2025 whenever we see the Switch 2. I think that could be a great announcement to go alongside that new device. But, you know, grounding myself in reality, it's also possible that they have nothing at the Game Awards. That's not out of the realm of possibility. It has happened a couple times now. It even happened last year. I just feel like given where we are, given how many times they have been at the Game Awards, and given we're hearing rumors about Metroid Prime 2 and 3, specifically, Prime 4 is coming out next year, it just makes so much sense to show Metroid at the Game Awards or something like a Bravely Third. But I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think there will be a Nintendo news at the Game Awards, or do you think it's all nonsense and there will be nothing there, and we'll be waiting until probably January or February for some more substantial Nintendo hype information, news, that kind of thing. I'd love to hear your thoughts down there. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, content, discussions, theory, speculation, all that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames, and check out my Nintendo collecting channel over at It's Amiibo. And until next time, folks, peace.